How's it going, guys? In this video, we're going to focus on how to get that perfect explosion in your toy photography. So over the years, my technique for fireworks and explosions, that kind of thing, has really evolved quite a bit. And I finally found a technique and a process that I feel pretty confident with. So in this video, we're going to go over every single little thing you need to know about getting a really good, awesome explosion in toy photography. Whether that be your camera settings, when to shoot, what kinds of fireworks, editing, and everything. So I'm going to take a shot today, and I'm going to take you with me every single little step of the way through that shot. And I'm going to make sure I touch on everything. Promise. Make sure we get to everything. So big disclaimer. Everything in this video that I'm going to be doing, every single little step can really be used and utilized individually. So all of the things I'm doing, it might seem like a lot, like taking different photos and layering them and putting them together and different kinds of fireworks all together. You don't really need to be doing all of these things all at once that I'm going to be doing to have a great shot with an explosion in it. You could be doing just one of these things. It will still look cool. This is just kind of the process that I've been doing recently. And if you want to go through and do every single little step to get that shot, you can. If you want to just take individual little steps out from this process, you can do that too. Anything will be fine. I just don't want anyone to get discouraged, see all this crazy stuff I'm going to be doing, and say, that's too much for me, I'm not going to do it. You can do any one of these things on their own or all together. So number one is to be safe. Be safe. When you're dealing with pyrotechnics and literal fire, you could damage your figures, you could damage yourself, you could damage your surroundings. So just make sure whenever you're doing a shot like this to think before you do it. Just think a little bit before you do something. Make sure you're shooting in an area that is not super dry, or shoot after a rainfall, or spray down your surface first with some water before you blow something up, because you don't want to cause a forest fire or anything like that. Shoot somewhere damp, for sure. And also, spray your figure down first before you shoot it, because that's going to ultimately protect your figure quite a bit as well, if your figure is wet as opposed to it being dry and a lot more susceptible to getting burnt. Also, cool people don't watch explosions. But seriously, don't watch the explosion while it's going off, unless you're wearing glasses. Every time I'm shooting, I set the firework off and I close my eyes and pull the trigger and let it go, because if you're concentrated on it, you're gonna get fireworks in your eyes and you could hurt your eye and die or something. You don't want to do that. But if you are wearing safety glasses, that you can, take a little peek while it's going off. Just really, we don't want anybody getting hurt here. Okay, so when do you shoot? What time should you shoot to get a really awesome explosion? Just don't shoot right in the direct sunlight, because when the sun is shining so bright, the sunlight is going to wash out your explosion and you're not going to really be able to see it so well. The sun is just so bright that any firework in the sunlight is going to look really, really not so bright when the sun is there, So shoot in the shade, or shoot on a cloudy day, or just shoot right after the sun goes down. Have enough light to see your photo and see your character in your photo, but not too much light to the point where you're just going to completely wash out your explosion. Shooting a firework in the bright sunlight, all you're going to see is just a bunch of smoke. The light's just going to pick up right on the smoke, and that's all you're going to be able to see. I'm telling you right now. And realistically, the darker it is, the more your firework is going to show up and look extra awesome. Medium, if you shoot too dark, then you can't really see your characters. But shooting at night is still really fun and can still definitely work. You just have to really deal with a lot more lighting and some portable lighting to make sure you can still see your character and your subject in the photo and not just the explosion. You gotta find that perfect time and that perfect lighting to shoot to where you can still see your figure and then still really see the firework really well. My favorite is right after the sun goes down, because it's dark enough to the point where the firework's still gonna look, but it's also bright enough to the point where you can still see the figure and everything kind of fits perfectly, which is kind of right now. The sun literally just set a little bit ago, and it's also was a cloudy day, so it kind of works out. Okay, so what kinds of fireworks am I going to be using? That is a good question. So the main ones I'm going to be using are these right here. Crackling balls. You could find them in a lot of different names. These are actually cracker balls. Crackling balls of fire, it's something like that. There's a ton of different brands all making the same thing with a little bit of a similar title. But crackling balls are the way to go. Basically, you light them and then just go make a tiny little explosion, and it's perfect for toy photography. The other one I'm using is just basic sparklers. Very, very basic sparklers. The same ones I'm sure you're thinking of right now when I tell you sparklers. I'm actually going to be using a couple other ones too as well for different effects and stuff, but hey, any kind of sparkler works. But the even bigger question, where do you get fireworks? Where do you get fireworks? That's such a hard question to answer because the firework laws and pyrotechnic laws are going to be different no matter where you go. I live in New York. I just drive 4 hours south to Pennsylvania. We're right on the border, and there's a ton of different fireworks shops around there that I like to go to, and I stock up whenever I'm running out. But it's going to be different for you no matter what. Unfortunately, I don't really have a good answer for that. Some people are able to find these exact fireworks and sparklers online, on eBay. Definitely recommend giving a search. Depending on where you are, it could be different. Or just search local, like Google, fireworks shops near me. You might have one within a couple hours of you, depending on where you live. Things are definitely different. Also, if you live in the US, around July 4th, you can usually find pop-up firework places, different stands and stuff like that too. That's always a good time to stock up right there. But if you have a spot near you, or if you have a website that you like to use that works really well for you, please comment below, because that could really be helpful for anyone else who's watching that doesn't really know where to get them. Maybe they live near where you live, and the same technique you use or the same place you go to will work for them. So please just comment something below on where you get yours, because that could be really, really helpful for somebody. So I think it's about time to set up the shot, which is great. But first, before we do that, I have to talk about today's video sponsor, which is actually my pants, which are made by Western Rise. So the pants from Western Rise are versatile, comfortable, and high performance, which means you can do stuff with them. Look at this. All of the crazy toy photography, crazy little stands that I'm in, I can do all of that while wearing these, which is why I really like them. Plus, they look really cool, I think. And my girlfriend said that I looked good in them, so that's definitely a plus. They are water and stain resistant. There's a pocket in the front for your phone. There's also like a hidden zip pocket right here for stuff too, which is pretty awesome. Wow, the water literally came right off. So they won't wrinkle, smell, or stain apparently, which is really amazing. This is my first time really putting them to good use, so I'm definitely going to put them to the test. In all honesty, the reason why I really love these pants is I can wear them even right now in the summer. I'm not even like super hot wearing them, but I can wear them while I'm going out to take toy pics, and I don't got to worry about ripping them. I can't tell you how many pairs of pants I've ripped. I've ripped in the crotch. But yeah, I can literally go into all of my toy photography crazy poses, and they're fine. So I'm totally a fan of these. So if you want to get yourself a pair just like these, which are the charcoal color, go to the link below and use my code Sirdork, and that'll save you 10%. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, thanks Western Rise. So your setup for your explosion shot really doesn't matter. It's pretty much however you really want to do it. I like to have kind of a dark background, so then the dark background will really contrast off of the bright orange sparks from the firework. So I'm going to use the dark background really just with these rocks behind, and it's going to look pretty cool. So I'm going to set up. So everything's just about set up. Boba Fett is jumping up or using his jetpack. There's gonna be a big explosion behind him, and there's some dead stormtroopers around the outside too. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to spray down the entire area. Spray down the figures, spray down the rocks and everything. So not only is it going to keep the figures and the whole environment more safe because of the fire, but it's also going to create a really cool reflective surface for all the light and the fire to reflect off of and bounce and stuff. It looks really cool, and I love all the different droplets it'll make on the figure too, and it just makes it so much more dynamic and when all the light is bouncing off of it, it looks so cool. And also a really important part about getting a scene to look super awesome, making sure your posing is on point, and if you need to use wires, those are looking okay as well. So I do have a tutorial specifically on posing and getting that awesome pose, and I also have a tutorial specifically about using wires, what kinds of wires to use, and how to remove them in Photoshop or whatever program you're using. So I would definitely recommend checking those videos out as well. And all of the gear I'm using today, everything except for the fireworks, is going to be linked in the description of the video below too. The wire, the camera, everything is going to be in there also. So yeah, it's there for you. So I really super recommend using a tripod. Even if you're just using a phone to do this stuff, use a tripod, because when you are taking lots of photos and trying to bring them all together, which is what I'm going to be doing, you want the camera to stay in that exact same place. You want it to stay right there. You don't want anything to move. So tripod is really essential with that as well. So also, on the topic of making sure every single photo is in the exact same place for when we're layering it and editing it together later on, you definitely want to not touch your camera as much as possible. Once you take the first shot, don't touch it. Just leave it there. And so really the best way to make sure you don't nudge it or move it at all, use a remote shutter. This thing is amazing. It's very cheap. It's only like $10 or something on Amazon. I'll have this one linked in the description below as well. So really try your best not to touch the camera, to use a tripod, make sure it's nice and sturdy, don't kick it, and use a remote shutter as well. Super cheap, super awesome. And if you are going to be layering your photos together, taking a bunch, layering together, and you do end up nudging your camera a little bit, it doesn't totally ruin everything. It does just make the editing process way more difficult if you do that. So this will save you so much time and so much frustration if you just try to keep the camera as stable as possible. So when you're shooting explosions, or even when you're shooting any toy photo, your camera settings are very important. They're paramount, really. Getting the right settings will obviously really affect your photo. So my number one thing I will always adjust first when I'm taking an explosion photo with my settings is my shutter speed. I will try to have my shutter speed as fast as possible. So about 1/4000 or so. That's really the fastest mine can go. Sometimes I'll move a little bit further over to the left, but I'll usually keep it at exactly 1/4000. So the faster it is, the faster your camera's taking the photos, faster it'll be able to pick up every single little spark exactly where, like every single little particle, spark, everything. It looks so much better. It looks so awesome that way. If you do end up having a slower shutter speed or whatever, you get these long lines and trails from where all the explosions were moving and all the sparks were moving. And you know, if you're into that effect, that can work pretty cool, but I like the nice crispy little spark, bokeh, dots, everything. Oh yeah. That's what I'm going for. So a fast shutter speed is the number one thing to think about. And naturally, a fast shutter speed will make your photo a little bit darker anyway. So it's really good to adjust your settings accordingly afterwards. And when I'm talking about camera settings and stuff and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I definitely recommend checking out my camera setting tutorial, also in my tutorials playlist as well. That will be very helpful as well. Definitely recommend. It'll be linked below, just like everything else. So for my f-stop or my aperture, I'll usually have something nice and low, like even a 1.8. The lens I'm using is just a 50mm 1.8 lens, so a lot of times I'll go all the way down to 1.8. So it's going to blur my background a lot when I'm using a low f-stop. And so with that blurred background, it means it'll blur any sparks in the background too, which will create bokeh, and we love that bokeh a lot. And even sparks in the foreground will turn into bokeh as well, and that's my favorite thing ever. So I definitely recommend a lower f-stop if you can, like a 1.8 or a 2 point something if possible. And if you know your camera only goes down to like a 5 point something, that's okay too. It'll still look really good. Plus, the lower your f-stop is, it'll also brighten your photo up a little bit too, which helps out quite a bit when our shutter speed is really fast. And as far as my ISO goes, I will usually mess with that accordingly depending on how dark or how light it is outside. So maybe around 800 or even a little bit higher than that is okay. Don't go too high or your photo will look a little bit grainy. You don't want to go too high with the ISO. Really the lowest you can get it, the better.
So these are my current settings right now. I got 13200 for shutter. My f-stop is at 2.0 and my ISO is at 800. It's still a little bit dark if I look at the photo right now, but that is okay because we are going to add in some light later on, and that's going to be awesome. So let's start.
The fact that the photo is a little bit dark right now is okay because we're going to add in some stuff with my lume cubes later on. Let's start getting the fireworks ready.
So I like to pop off the top of the firework because it's not really useful at all. So now we just have the explosive really as is. So I'm going to place the firework right here. The closer you are to a figure, the more likely it is going to get damaged. So just be careful. It's pretty close to this guy, but you know what? A little bit more char on him might look pretty cool.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to light the firework, and before it goes off, we're just going to hold the trigger, close our eyes, and just take a bunch of photos using the multi-shot mode with your camera. Make sure you're on multi-shot, and just take a bunch of them as the fireworks going off. And I'm going to use my blowtorch to light it, even though it's unnecessary. A lighter works just fine. I just like using a blowtorch because when the wind is blowing, it'll still light, no problem. Sometimes a lighter when the wind is blowing is a pain in the butt, so that's why I have this guy. Okay, so I took a couple shots with the firework. I took a few just to make sure I have what I want and I can add in together whatever shots I like. So I did 3 different fireworks. Now I'm going to shoot with these special long sparklers that I really like to use. I'm sure you've seen me use them in plenty of shots. I'm going to use them to try and get a jetpack effect with Boba Fett. So I'm going to take a bunch of shots with the sparkler facing down. And then I'm going to layer them in later on too, along with everything else. Hopefully that looks cool as well. And again, I'm trying not to touch my camera. Everything's in the exact same place. I'm going to try not to touch the figures either, so everything is perfect, and then it'll all blend together perfectly. The last pyrotechnic I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a bunch of shots with a normal sparkler in the front of the camera, in the foreground, because a bunch of those will look really cool with just some bokeh in the front of the screen because it's going to be blurred out because it's so close to the lens. It's going to be really, really cool. Just be careful, don't go too close to the lens and destroy it. You don't want to do that, but this is a really fun effect I love to do. I'm sure you've seen me do it in other ones before. So let's go. Okay, so I got a bunch with this little sparkler here, and it's still going. It's gonna end in 3, 2, 1. But got a bunch of shots with the sparkler up in front. That's gonna look really cool. I'm gonna layer all of these shots in together to get this awesome, perfect explosion. So the only shots that I need to take now are a bunch of shots with my lume cube. This is my lume cube panel pro. If you want any of these, anything like this, go to the link below. Use my discount code Sirdork for 10% off on any lume cube product. I love these things. But we're gonna take a bunch of photos with the lighting on Boba Fett wherever we want on him, and we're gonna layer them in just like we do with the fireworks and stuff. It's gonna make him pop so much better, and we're also going to give off the illusion that the explosion is lighting and illuminating him really nicely and look really, really good. So I'm going to try and aim the light coming from the direction that main explosion was coming from, so it looks like the explosion is lighting him up. So let's do it. Try not to touch anything. So I got plenty of light on the right side of Boba Fett, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some green light on the left side of him too, just to light him up a little. So I think we got all the shots we need to take. We're pretty much good. We're all set. So now the only thing left to do is to go inside and edit all these together. So let's do it. Also, this guy was really close to the firework, so he actually doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of char on his back there, this little bit of black. And I did already spray him down with the hose afterwards too, and he looks good. You'd be surprised how well these figures can take a little bit of, you know, explosion from the firework. They take it pretty well. So I took quite a bit of photos with the crackling ball. As you can see, all of these here, as well as a bunch with the sparkler and some bokeh stuff, and then even towards down here we got a bunch with the Lume Cube as well. So I have a few that I have started out with just with pyrotechnics. I have a base photo that I'm going to use as my main canvas, which is right here. Then I have a big explosion, and I have a smaller explosion, and then I've got some, this looks really cool, with the sparkler for the jetpack, and then another one for the jetpack, and then a couple shots with just some bokeh. I don't need too much. So this is my main canvas I'm going to be doing just about all of my layering onto. So I'm going to start out with this one, the bigger explosion, and I'm going to hit Control A to select everything, and I'm going to do a quick Control C to copy. Then I'm going to go back over to this one and Control V and paste it on there. So as you can see, it's completely taking over the first photo. So I'm going to change my layer type over here to lighten. I do still have this background here behind it. There's too many sparks going over Boba Fett. It's too much. You can't see him very well, so I'm going to erase some of it. So the only reason this erasing is possible is because I have this other layer as my background. So the next thing to do here is, I don't know if this explosion is really going to make much of a difference, but I'm going to give it a shot. So Control A, Control C, then Control V right over it. And so now we're going to hit lighten also. And there we go. That looks okay. So now let's put in this as his booster for his jetpack. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit off. I wanted it to be right next to, or right on where the booster is right here. So I'm gonna actually put that there. So I'm just gonna take just about all of this here. Copy that, Control C, Control V. So I'm going to move it around where I want it, which is right there, but I'm going to make it lighten just like everything else. What's really great about lighten is that it makes everything that's dark, make it completely translucent, and then everything that's light, it will not be translucent. So it's perfect with explosions with a dark background. Dark background will become clear, and then all of the fire will stay. So it's pretty close. I want it to be right like it's coming out of the jetpack, so there it is. But yeah, obviously that still doesn't look right. We got lines here, and you can still actually see part of the sparkler here too. So I'm going to erase that sparkler, go back to my eraser tool. It's a little bit big. I'm going to make it smaller and erase the sparkler. And so we still got this line here, which is just, honestly, all of this here is just kind of too much. So I'm just going to erase that. So let's go to the eraser tool. I'm going to make it bigger again. A little bit bigger. And I'm just going to get rid of all of this. I'm also going to get rid of some of it on his leg too, because it doesn't look super realistic. Let's get his second booster that's behind him, which is right here. This is going to be a really easy fill. So instead of just hitting Control V, I'm going to do a special trick where it's Control Shift V, which is paste in place, and it will paste it exactly where it needs to be, basically exactly where it came from over here. And so there you go. It just added that nice little booster behind. So let's erase some of that extra smoke as well. And there we go. Now Boba Fett has 2 boosters. So let's get some of this bokeh. Yeah. And we're gonna do the same thing, Control Shift V to paste in place.
and it's gonna work out very nicely because all of this background is very dark. I probably won't need to do any adjusting after I turn it to light in. Boom. And there it is. We got a couple more pieces of bokeh here too, so let's see, which one should I get? I wish there was a little bit more right here. This just seems empty. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna look to see if there's any other shots with some bokeh in the corner. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this one right here. So I got this nice little piece of bokeh, and it's not in the corner, but since it is on a very, very dark black background, I can pretty much put it wherever I want, and it will look fine. So I'm gonna copy this, and I'm going to paste it. And you know what? I'm gonna put it right there. It's looking real good, but Boba Fett is not very well lit. So I have two photos to help with the lighting for Boba Fett. And hopefully they line up perfectly and the wire didn't move at all. So I'm just gonna do the same exact thing as I do with the explosions. I'm gonna draw a circle around Boba Fett, copy, and then I'm going to paste in place, Control-Shift-V. Okay, it's right on him. It's a little bit off. I'm gonna have to adjust it. That's okay. Lighten, and there we go. Now we have a little bit more lighting on him, and it is a tiny bit off. It's not totally lined up. So I'm gonna zoom in on a detail like right on his arm. I'm going to try and line it up a little bit better. So I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard and slowly tap it up. That looks perfect. I think it's lined up perfectly. So this one had a little bit more light for his face, and I think I'm going to grab that. Alright, not too shabby, Boba. So the only thing left to add in with the lighting is some of the bottom ones we got with the green. And alright, everything seems to be pretty lined up. Alright, Boba, you're looking pretty good. I'm also going to grab some of the green light and put it on this Stormtrooper too, just so it looks natural and doesn't look like there's just some random green light on Boba Fett and not everything else. Yeah, you know, it's very subtle, but I like it. Okay, so as far as all of the layering and blending together, I think we're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge all the layers. I know, merge visible. So we still do have a wire, so we got to get rid of that. So I'm going to use my clone tool, get rid of that. If you want to see more in-depth detail about removing wires, make sure to check out the tutorial I have on wire removal. Okay, so now to touch up the colors, we haven't really adjusted any colors or darks or anything yet. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and then the curves. So the curves basically give you the opportunity to brighten the brights, darken the brights, darken the darks, brighten the darks, anything. So I'm going to pretty much make this in a nice little S formation. And that alone makes a pretty big difference. So I'm now going to take my dodge tool, which is right here, and I really like to take what's already light and make it lighter. Have it on highlights, so I'm going to highlight the highlights. The exposure I'm going to bring down to maybe like 19 or 20. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to brighten up the brights on different parts of him. So I'm also going to do the same thing with the dark. So I'm going to go to the burn tool. I'm going to darken the shadows too, so there's a little more contrast. So yeah, I think the photo's done. The only thing left is for me to add my watermark. I'm just going to go to the text tool. And that's how we edit an explosion.
So I hope you guys found this video helpful. The Boba Fett shot, it's going to be posted on Instagram, like always, at Sirdork730, that's me. And please, if you have any other questions on this kind of thing, please reach out, comment on this video, I will definitely respond. So thank you guys so much for watching, I really, really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one.